Hi, I'm Karen Kaushansky. To commemorate 25 years of designing voice interfaces, I've been reflecting on some of my learnings over the years that I wanted to share with you today. Some are geared towards leaders of the company, some towards design teams and individuals. Some of them might sound intuitive, and I hope that you are practicing them today, but I had to learn them the hard way. I'll also share some personal motivations and excitement for the future. I started working in 1996 for Bell Northern Research, which was a research arm of Bell Canada, a telecommunications company. They were working on two voice projects at the time. Automated directory assistance was the first one. Callers were asked what language, English or French, for the city that they were calling for and the listing, and this went to an operator to automate. Then there was voice-activated dialing, which I worked on. One of the main use cases was for my dad. This was at a time when car phones were starting to make their appearance. Every night at the end of his day, he would get in the car, dial *8 and say, "Call home," to tell us he was on his way, which was pretty much the only thing that technology could support back then. There was 20 names that had to be predetermined ahead of time. There was two drivers to these projects. Money, there's always money, but then addressing a real user need. So for example, for the Automated Directory Assistance project, it turned out that 1 second of automated time, instead of going to an operator, saved $60 million a year for companies. But on the voice-activated dialing side, we were solving a user need. First of all, we were already thinking about how to make driving safe when you have these distracted devices in the car. But also we were offering this at home, so that the young and old would be able to pick up the phone, dial a code, and easily say the name of the person they wanted to call without having to remember all these numbers. In terms of technology, we've come a long way from those predetermined 20 address book names. But back then we had to handcraft each grammar. That meant for a yes/no question, we had to write every type of way a user might say yes and no. And dialogues were very scripted. They had to follow a certain path. We've come a long way. Now we have natural language understanding models and are able to offer much more conversational interfaces. We also have connected devices, where now we know our devices in our home have enough processing power to hear hot words and wake up when we're talking to them, and even more so, there's much more recognition happening on device themselves. The third area of advancement I call context. This is being able to use sensors and other inputs besides just voice, like proximity, or using voice match to know who's talking, to be able to craft personalized experiences based on that context and history. Part of my role now, as I see it, is to help invent the future. This is somewhat at odds. Inventing the future and building for users. How do we do both? Well, I think of what one of my sports heroes has said, Wayne Gretzky. You have to skate to where the puck is going. If you asked users 20 years ago if they wanted speakers in their house, we would not be where we are today. But part of what has kept me engaged over the past 25 years has been able to bridge the gap between inventing the future and fulfilling real user needs. It's really important to articulate the vision. Find a great leader who can do this. Make sure there is a clear vision for you, your team, your company. Mike McHugh of Tell Me was one of those great leaders. In 2008, he said, "Tell Me was founded with the idea that anyone should be able to simply say what they want and get it from any device, starting with the phone." This was 2008, 3 years before there was Siri. And he made this vision happen. Let me show you a little demo of Tell Me on Windows Phone, first starting out, and you can see some of those user needs that we're trying to solve.
What I'd like to do is show you Tell Me on a Windows mobile phone. I use Tell Me by just pushing a button, saying what I want, and then Tell Me will get it for me. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say, for example, I want to go to a movie with my friend. I can start by texting him a message just by using Tell Me. So I just push the button, text David Mitby, And you'll see that Tell Me will then allow me to dictate my text message. So I can say, hey, let's go see a movie tonight.
Hey, let's go see a movie tonight.
Once there's a vision, find incremental ways to make progress towards it. Smaller releases along the way, build that roadmap to get to your vision. But my advice would be to check in with real users along the way. When my daughter was 4, we had a Cogni Toys Dino, a dinosaur toy powered by IBM Watson at home. And let me show you what happened.
Which one is a fruit? Steak or watermelon?
I don't know.
I didn't get that. Say it again.
I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. I was saying awesome.
Designing for kids means you have to imagine they are going to go off script. So not being able to recognize I don't know seems a bit amiss to me. People ask how you test pre-release products or pre-built products. I have a few suggestions. One is experience prototyping. So when Google Glass came out, I created a little paper prototype to walk around to see how it would make me feel. Doing things like this can give you just a gut feeling of where the obstacles would be, where the challenges are. How do we want products like this to make us feel? And are we on the right track? Another way is to fake it until you make it. I was at Tell Me and we were working on Ford Sync, which was pushing a button on the steering wheel to access this interactive experience. We put a physical button on the steering wheel and had wizards in the back seat playing prompts for drivers to interact. And they got so caught up in the experience that the fact that it was fake did not play in at all to getting great feedback on how this would work. And then there's also paper prototyping, which can get you the good feedback to get you started. Over time, I built up my experience with conversation design. In 2008, with Tell Me, I worked on Ford Sync. Ford already had an embedded system in the car, and we were asked to design and build a cloud service, a connected car experience to help drivers get real-time traffic, information, and directions. The first thing I did was listen to their embedded system. Here's what I heard.
USB, please say a command. Bruce Springsteen? You can say, play album, artist, genre, track, or playlist. To control media, say play, pause, previous or next track, previous or next folder.
So first off, for any designers out there, we could probably run a whole session on how many design principles this breaks, right? But honestly, I got a little cocky. I thought, these folks don't know anything about design. It's true, Ford didn't know conversation design. But what I forgot was to call on their years of expertise of designing for drivers and for the car. In the first designs, I forgot that the car would know where the driver would be and asked in a traffic scenario where they were starting from, which was not necessary. Let me play you a final clip of the design so you understand what I mean.
Say service or say, tell me my choices. Traffic to work. Traffic to work. Hang on while I look that up. Here's your traffic. If you take 101, there's an accident at Shoreline Boulevard. Traffic is heavy with a drive time of about 45 minutes. If you take 380, 280, and 92, there are no incidents reported. Traffic is light with a drive time of about half an hour.
What did I learn from this? In part, perhaps it was the Dunning-Kruger effect, believing I was smarter or more capable than I really was. Mostly it was about recognizing that I bring certain expertise to the table, but my partners, clients, collaborators do as well. And it's really important to build those relationships in order to create products that mean something together. So one of the learnings is about investing in relationships. With clients like Ford, with peers in the industry, it is a very small industry. Some of my closest friends and peers are Rebecca Nowlin Green of Nuance and Lisa Foxen of Amazon. We dressed up in the year 2000 as Charlie's Angels because our manager was Charles at the time. I have mentors and collaborators, PMs that I can call on at any time to help work through problems or issues, people that support me in my work. And it is so important, I have found over the years, to build strong relationships with engineers. One of the last things is once something has shipped, you aren't done. Find any way you can to get feedback on your released product. Metrics are so important. Looking at social media, usability testing, however you can. Here's an example when at Jawbone, we released the big Jambox, and we thought we were so smart that the Jambox would announce when the battery needed recharging. However, what was happening, just like smoke alarms that always go off in the middle of the night, so did the big Jambox, telling people that the battery needed to be recharged. And we learned this mostly from feedback from social media. The fix, by the way, was we only played that message afterwards if music was streaming, so if the device was actually being used at the time. So what about the next 25? I think about where we are today and where we want to go. Still today, I think half the time I ask the assistant something, my brain power is first directed to, is she going to hear me? And is she going to have an answer? I would love to get to a point where I don't need to think about that anymore, that there is this trust that she will hear and she will answer. Let's move away from the uncertainty and then amazement and just get to conversations. I was amazed during the pandemic when I asked, is EasyJet, the airline, flying again? Because is she going to know this? Is she not going to know this? In fact, she did, which is where this amazement comes from. The second big area is around the inability to understand natural sentences that have mixed languages. I live in Switzerland. We often ask Assistant for things that include multiple languages. Let me show you this example. Hey Google, is La Couronne d'Or open on Sunday?
There are a few locations. Here are their business hours for Sunday.
So a huge area is being able to mix languages, but also to understand all users. People with different accents, backgrounds, words they choose. That's where we need to go. And in fact, Google just announced a new app called Project Relate that lets people with speech impairments use a voice assistant in order to improve recognition over time for everybody. I found this framework a few years ago about how devices could and should work together. In this ambient ecosystem where multiple devices exist, where 1 + 1 is better than the sum of its parts. Finally, we're at the point where we can reduce those seams and frictions on how devices work together today. Back to those technology advancements we talked about earlier. If each device had more smarts, had context, had the ability to know other devices, we could create some really, truly meaningful experiences, like delivering the right of information depending on the surface, offering and allowing handoff from one device to another, or using two devices as complementary, such as a TV and a watch, to create a real seamless experience. So what's the future? In 2018, Chris Messina, the inventor of the hashtag, was talking about conversational commerce. And he broke it down like this. Conversations are interactions performed with language. A relationship is a ledger of interactions. and a relationship grows and deepens as diverse and meaningful interactions occur. He was advocating for relationship designers. There will come a time when our devices are smart and aware, our computing is ambient, our users trust the assistant and not have to worry, is it going to hear me or is it going to know the answer? And when we'll be able to understand all users. Today, we're still focusing on conversations to fill those gaps. But when there are no more gaps to fill, conversation design can transform into something much more meaningful, relationship design. Thanks so much.